much for being with us. It's been an incredible year 2025. The start of 2026 has been fairly dramatic from a global standpoint, but defense has come into focus in such a sharp way after Ops Sindoor. We've got the Defense Secretary Rajesh Kumar Singh with us. We're looking at in defense, commanding India's strategic edge. We've got about 15-20 minutes to talk with the Defense Secretary. I'm going to get started right away. A record defense budget. It's come as a huge surprise to many because we were competing with the 1962 defense budget as a percentage of GDP. Is this a direct result of Ops Sindoor?
I wouldn't say that, because I think when we made our projections to the 16 Finance Commission, also I had asked for a 19% year-on-year increase in the, particularly in the capital outlay for the Defense Ministry. And I had made it clear in other forums as well that I will be seeking this year a 20% increase. And we are very thankful to the Ministry of Finance. Of course, the experience of Ops Sindoor would have also weighed on them to some extent. But certainly, we are very happy with an increase in overall capital outlay of 21% and an increase in the modernization part of the budget by about 24%. And that is what really affects your capabilities, because that is directly related to your equipment and other technological upgradation proposals.
Does this mean that that massive order for 114 jet aircraft and an equally massive order for new build conventional submarines is on the anvil?
The submarine one is certainly on the anvil, in the sense that cost negotiations are on, and hopefully it will go to the highest decision-making authority in government in the not too distant future, maybe in about 3 months' time. The other one is a little early. We are still, we've crossed one hurdle only, which is the Defense Procurement Board. Thereafter, there are 2 other decision-making bodies, the Defense Acquisition Council under the Raksha Mantri, and ultimately the CCS under the PM. Those stages, when it happens, it will happen. As far as I'm concerned, we will try to move ahead with it, but I don't want to sort of preempt the decision-making of these higher bodies. But yes, we are proceeding with that, with the intention of ensuring that it is a Make in India proposal with significant indigenization, a lot of local content, a lot of ability to upgrade its software, to integrate our own weapon systems, all of that. But at the end of the day, it's a negotiated process. The negotiations will start after we get the DAC clearance. And thereafter, we'll see how we can navigate it through the government at the highest levels, given the scale of this order and the huge budgetary outlays that it will entail.
And a large part of that is Make in India. That's, it's your policy priority.
Yes.
Do you believe that once the deal is agreed upon, the Make in India component will follow easily? Because none of these aircraft, whatever is picked, and there's one which is doing the name which is doing the rounds, it's not been built in any other country.
That's right. I mean, it will be the first time that particular aircraft will be built outside France. And it can be a struggle. I mean, the other sort of template we have here is the C-295, the transport aircraft, which is where the final assembly line is being, the first of the Indian aircraft will come out by September this year. And I do understand that there has been quite a struggle in getting to line up the components, the local suppliers, etc. It is a challenge, but then, nobody said it's going to be easy. The idea is that we have to have some of these capabilities, and the intent of the government is to ensure that while building these capabilities, we ensure that a lot of localization does occur.
It's been reported that Hindustan Aeronautics is not part of the shortlist of companies which are building the prototype or may build the prototype of the AMCA, India's stealth platform. That is fairly revolutionary. A, is that correct? And B, if it is, what is the signal that you're trying to send?
See, the revolutionary part of it was when we developed that model where we said that we'll make it a level playing field. The private sector can also participate in this particular project for building 5 prototypes of the AMCA aircraft. We were pleasant. Frankly, it was a leap of faith for all of us. There were a lot of naysayers, people who said that there will be no private sector bids at all. On the contrary, we got, I think, 7 fairly credible industrial consortia, a combination of public and private sector, who bid for it. We are in the process of completing it. I'm not again going to tell you when that, the details of the process, because let the process be complete and you'll know, whether HAL is in or out. But end of the day, I can certainly tell you that there are credible private sector entities who are very much in the running. And the pleasant part of it is that at least 2 of them have strong public sector companies as part of their consortia. So it's going to be a genuine public-private partnership, hopefully, in building and in incubating a fresh fighter jet aircraft production line in this country.
So the naysayers would have told you that none of these companies have built a fighter aircraft, end to end. And here you're talking about a 5th generation plus stealth platform incorporating advanced, AI, an Indian AESA radar, Indian weaponry which is still being developed, etc., etc. A design which is very difficult and sophisticated. What leads you to believe that we have that technological maturity outside HAL?
Well, frankly, the process that has been followed in shortlisting these companies and thereafter, judging qualifying them technically based on the availability of skilled manpower, capital equipment, past experience. It's a very detailed matrix, and on the basis of that, we've managed to select, as you mentioned, 3 consortia. This has been done by an expert group, and I have full confidence in that expert group's shortlisting criteria. HAL also would have definitely been part of it. HAL probably would have had some difficulty because of the nature of its order book being very, very extreme. It has a huge order book on the LCA side itself, it has about 180 aircraft on its order books still to be delivered. It has another almost 150 odd LCH aircraft and a bunch of ALHs as well as some Dahias that are coming their way. So they are sort of fixed for the next 10 years. So in that sense, that weighs a bit on their capability to produce a fresh line. The other companies in India, many of them have had a lot of experience in terms of being part of global supply chains, whether it is TASL, whether it is a bunch of other companies. So I'm very confident about this. End of the day, it is a leap of faith from our side as well, but we do feel that it can be made to happen. And end of the day, we are giving them a very long time, about 7-8 years, to actually learn this and make it happen.
I'll be very unpopular for asking this question, but the Tejas fighter, 180 of them on order, Tejas Mark 1A and the Tejas Mark 2. How would you respond to those who say that the Tejas, both the Mark 1A and the Mark 2, would essentially be dated by the time they are inducted in serious numbers?
I think it's a fairly capable aircraft, and the issue is, of course, that some of the weapons integration took some time. Now that the engines have finally started coming, we have 5 available, and hopefully at least 5 more on the way in this current financial year. And the delivery is reasonably stable at about 20 a year every financial year thereafter. The trials that they've done, both with the Astra and with the close-range missiles, have been extremely successful. So I wouldn't say that they are outdated. The issue is, of course, to sort of ensure that the delivery milestones are picked up. Ultimately, there is a little bit of spiral development involved. There are some QRs that they've not quite met as yet to the Air Force's requirements. We hope that as they implement this fairly huge order of 180 aircraft, they iron out these imperfections and ensure that they provide a platform which the Air Force is happy with.
You spoke about engines briefly. We've got 2 in the works, one from Safran, one from General Electric, with whom we have an agreement, but it's yet to be fully realized. How are those progressing? Because that's the holy grail of aviation engineering, some would argue, and unless we pick up that technology, it becomes problematic for us in the long run. Could you tell us where those projects are?
So for the For our own jet engine program, the intent is that GTRE, which is the lab which deals with jet engine technology, will tie up with an international engine house to co-develop an engine with the requisite thrust-to-weight ratio that the AMCA program needs. That proposal is in a pretty advanced stage. The international engine house is also fairly widely known, which it is. We are in the process of taking this proposal to the cabinet, and thereafter this process will start. The other engine that you mentioned, the GE 414, for which negotiations are ongoing between HAL and General Electric. I think the technical negotiations are over. The commercial negotiations are taking some time because of the some of the cost escalation that has happened, but we are hopeful that HAL will be able to complete it in the next few months.
On another aspect, it's R&D. Without R&D, Atmanirbharta cannot succeed. I think that's a fairly basic premise. I noticed the R&D budget has gone up, but you need to perhaps increase it substantially more. Just for example, looking at what the Chinese are doing and the extent they evidently spend on R&D. Tell us about India's R&D conundrum in defense.
So you're right. I mean, this year's budget for the DRDO, including on R&D, has gone up by about close to 10%. So there is an increase, and also, I mean, besides the DRDO's budget, we do run a bunch of other programs through IDEX and others where some level of support for R&D, for prototype development is available to our startups and other deep tech companies. How we make it bigger? I mean, see, there is this 1 lakh crore Anusandhan fund that has been set aside by the Ministry of Finance. Its modalities have finally been published, how it will be tapped. Our hope is that many of our companies, startups, private sector actually start tapping that, because end of the day, if that money is available and it doesn't get utilized, then I mean, at the end of the day, the government can only do so much. Some of that effort will have to come from the private sector. The patient capital hopefully will come from that Anusandhan fund. And if the private sector is able to do it, as far as the public sector is concerned, I think, as you are aware, the bulk of the R&D spending in this country in any case is done largely by the government and by the public sector.
The Agnipath scheme has been around now for a couple of years. It's being implemented at various levels. Recruitment is on fairly actively. From a financial standpoint, is it giving us benefits? Is it less expensive to man our Army, Air Force, Navy, Coast Guard? So it's early days as far as the scheme is concerned, and frankly, I have not looked at the numbers as to to what extent it will affect our pension liabilities. And obviously, in the long run, it will help us because the pension liabilities will come down. But I think the intent was never to, focused only on the financial part of it. The intent was to get younger manpower into the forces, to use them. This is the practice in most armies across the world, where you do a certain level of induction at a fairly early age, keep the army young. And that's what we are doing. On the numbers, I think it will have some fiscal benefits in the long run, but that is a secondary consideration. Drones were used extensively by us during Op Sindoor with fairly mixed results in terms of indigenous drones. Since we spoke last, which was several months back, there's been this concerted effort, I think, by indigenous drone manufacturers to step up to the plate, improve their efficiency, not just in manufacture, but capabilities themselves, be more resistant to jamming. I think drones are an incredibly important part of the future of Indian defense. At stating the obvious, do you have more confidence on the ability of indigenous drone manufacturers to deliver?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the confidence is sort of growing every passing day. We have a fairly large drone ecosystem in this country. They were not producing too much of military-grade drones, but as a result of Operation Sindoor, they've come to realize that they have to operate in contested environments, in GPS denial environments, and that hardening the provision or the introduction of the required patches to ensure that they can survive jamming, all that is happening. I think some of the trials that the Army has done, the successful ones have been few, but others are learning. So yeah, I mean, I think this ecosystem is growing very, very well. And at the end of the day, if you don't have fully Indian design and developed, you will also have these technology transfers. A lot of foreign majors, whether it is General Atomics, a lot of the Israeli companies, they've entered into technology transfer with Indian companies in the private sector. And so we will, I think, have a fairly large, fairly robust military drone ecosystem of the country, comprising everything from the loitering drones and kamikaze ones to the much longer range and the male and HAL category drones. For the male category drones, we've already got a tender out, and we've had a fairly humongous response of 24 companies who want to make those. I'm sure that number will thin down once we go through the technical pre-qualification process. But yeah, I mean, we feel that in the next few years, we'll have the capacity in this country to make all kinds of drones from the, and let me also say that a lot of these drone manufacturing, we sometimes lose sight of the fact that the Indian Army, and particularly its EME wing, is able to actually do a lot of drone manufacturing of the for military use itself. They're using components available on the market. And I was very surprised in my visits to some of the commands that they've developed a lot of different types of drones, particularly the loitering munitions, even ISR drones, at very, very low cost. So yeah, I mean, all that is happening.
One of the biggest performers for India during Op Sindoor was the S-400 surface-to-air missile system. It has genuinely delivered the way it was specified to. We've got a couple of units which are still to be delivered. Are we going to get those sooner than later, given the situation in Russia now? And what about the future and the S-400 and the S-500?
On the S-400, the Balance 2 batteries are going to come in the current calendar year. The first one by June and the last one by November. We've been assured repeatedly that this delivery milestone will be met. On future, whether we go for some additional batteries of S-400 or whether we go for the S-500, frankly, S-500, I don't think that they've really exported it to any country so far. S-500, there is some projection that we might need a few more. The IFOs will look into it, and once they make a statement of case, we'll certainly examine it, given its effectiveness. And of course, as a end of the day, as you would have you've covered this beat for a long time, you're aware we are trying to develop our indigenous version as well. That has also had some success in terms of initial trials. So yeah, but as an interim measure, until that kicks in, there could be a requirement for a few more S-400 batteries, and we'll look at that option.
You've in fact touched on a very interesting point. India's Sudarshan Chakra, not the Sudarshan system, which is sort of synonymous with the S-400, but the larger plan to have a ballistic missile shield with an exo interceptor and an endo atmospheric interceptor. Have we gained the technological prowess, the engineering to be able to develop a robust system, deploy a robust system?
I think when it comes to missile technology, particularly, the DRDO has certainly sort of delivered results in many ways, and I'm very confident that they will be able to, develop this missile shield for us. It would ultimately be a multi-layered system where a lot of our legacy systems will also play their part. But yes, I'm very confident that DRDO will be able to deliver on this, given their track record when it comes to missile development. Of course, the concept paper and also let me stress that the Honorable Prime Minister's vision of the Sudarshan Chakra mission has always been that it should be largely or broadly indigenous. So yes, we do intend to do it ourselves using DRDO's technology with some fill-ins from outside, including some of our legacy systems or weapons like the S-400, which we already have available or which are already part of our inventory.
A final question. For decades, defense beat journalists like me used to criticize your ministry and the Navy and the shipyards for being unable to deliver ships on time. Now, that is very much a passé argument. That is no longer the case. It's remarkable, the speed at which and the consistency with which we are able to but manufacture warships to very exacting standards, put them in the water, and have them fully operational. But we are now looking at the future. For example, our next generation destroyers, it might be called the Project 18. Where are we in our thinking on that? And it ultimately boils down to sealing designs and placing orders. So let's hope there's no further slowdown there, or there is no slowdown there.
No, I agree with you that the Navy perhaps has been the most the quickest of the mark in terms of embarking on the Atmanirbharta mission. I think we have about 59 odd ships being constructed right now, and with deliveries every 2 or 3 months. So yes, they've done the most in terms of getting this Atmanirbharta mission on the road. Others are now following. The NGD, the next generation corvettes, all of those will happen over the next few years. That is, that intent is very clear, that we want to make it get to our goals when it comes to strengthening the Navy into a full blue water Navy with complete dominance, at least in the Indian Ocean region. So that will happen, Vishnu. And let me also say that end of the day, what you mentioned about delivering ships on time, it shows what happens when you provide predictability in terms and visibility when it comes to in terms of orders, which is what we tried to do over the last 2-3 years in particular. We signed about 2,09,000 crores of contracts last year. This year, we've already signed about 2,10,000 crore worth of contracts by December. Once you provide the contracts, the visibility to that entire ecosystem, then you start, getting results 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years down the line. And that is what we intend to do, which is why this 20%, with this 20% increase in our capex budget, the intent is to keep up the pace of contract signings, about 3 lakh crores in the next year, and keep it up for the next 3-4 years. And thereafter, the capabilities will come, through the pipeline of orders that you've placed. And that is the intent, and we hope to make it happen.
And a final question, as a percentage of GDP, we've seen a significant rise in the defense budget. We began our conversation like that. Is this the new benchmark?
As a percentage of GDP, we've restored the share had come down to about 1.8%. So we've kind of reversed that decline in our share, the defense share of GDP. We are now back to about 2%. My view is that given the rate of increase of our GDP, nominal terms at least 10% every year, I think we can confidently expect. So we have the fiscal headroom. I think a 20% CAGR in our modernization budget in particular, every year for the next 5 years will meet almost every sort of capability void that the forces are worried about, or which they would like to sort of ensure that it gets filled. In fact, their view was earlier that even a 10% increase would be enough. But with the experience of Sindoor and the changing trends in warfare, I think a 20% increase and a 2.5% share of the GDP in 5 years is what I'm looking at. And in my view, that would be, comfortably give us the capabilities that we need.
Well, sir, it's been wonderful speaking to you, and thank you so much for taking all of these questions. He's always been incredibly forthright in his answers, very direct questions, direct answers. It gives you an idea of where we are in the Defense Ministry and defense procurement. Thank you, sir, very much for being with us.
Thank you.